Ferrari have not won an F1 championship since claiming the 2008 Constructors' title. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz struggled all weekend in Canada, as the team had their first pointless Sunday since last year's Australian GP. Ferrari experienced their first double DNF in 2 years, with a stunning lack of pace compounded by Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz's failure to finish the race. From the high of Leclerc's home victory in Monaco to power unit troubles, team and driver errors, and tyre issues in Montreal, Ferrari is scratching their brains ahead of the Spanish Grand Prix. Max Verstappen's triumph at the weekend moved him 56 points ahead of Leclerc in the drivers' title, while Ferrari fell 48 points behind Red Bull in the constructors' standings. Before Montreal, Leclerc believed Ferrari might beat Red Bull in at least one of the championships this year, but his aspirations were dashed throughout the weekend. If Ferrari is to be considered real contenders, whether this season or next, they cannot afford weekends like this one, when practically everything went wrong. The circuit Gilles Villeneuve was supposed to fit the Ferrari's attributes, such as its ability to change direction quickly and ride the curbs. However, a wet Friday and cold qualifying conditions did not favour the Scuderia. Both drivers successfully completed the first part of qualifying, however, they were eliminated in Q2. Ferrari chose to send Leclerc and Sainz out on old soft tyres, saving a new set for Q3. This backfired badly, placing Leclerc 11th and Sainz 12th on the grid. The biggest issue was we were so slow. Every time it was dry, we were nowhere and we have to look into it, Leclerc told Sky Sports F1. Since FP3, we were nowhere. The car feels bad. There is no grip at all. The tyres never felt ready. It was going well until the conditions were difficult. In the end, we were on the same pace as those around me, and that gives you a bit of confidence. Then with the dry track, you can take fewer risks than when it is wet, and this tends to level everything out. By losing a second and a half, I let everyone pass me, and then I knew the race was over. We were missing something like 20-25 km/h on the straight. Ferrari utilised new soft tyres at the start of Q2, anticipating rain. However, the track progressed, and other teams with fresh rubber surpassed them and entered the top 10. Sainz made a mistake at the penultimate corner on his last Q2 lap, losing him around 3/10, which contributed to his surprising elimination. If we did everything perfect with the running of the new tyres at the beginning and not the end, and a cleaner last corner, Q3 was possible, but the reality is it was too tight, said Sainz. Normally on any other track, running the used at the end, we still would have made Q3 and would be fighting for pole, but when you don't do these details right, you get found out. Things did not improve in the race, as Leclerc suffered a power unit trouble and was unable to progress. Ferrari attempted to remedy Leclerc's lack of power, which he described as a new issue, during a pit stop, and it appeared to work at first. They also gambled on giving him dry tyres as the rain began to pour, only to have to swap them back a few circuits later as the storms worsened. The Monegasque driver was quickly lapped by the leaders, and when the engine gremlins returned, Ferrari was forced to abandon his car after 40 of the 70 scheduled laps. I was losing 1.2 seconds in the straights, which was extremely annoying, said Leclerc. And then over that I had like 10 changes per lap on the different engine switch, which was such a frustrating race because you get passed by everybody in the straights. The fact that we change engines often is not a very good sign. Having said that, we have to analyse what the problem was today. I don't know what it was, honestly. In corners you are fast, and actually I think the pace was quite strong at the beginning considering the 1.2 off. But with the engine issue, there was nothing we could have done better. I was going a second and a half slower on the straights. It was a difficult race to manage because, in addition to losing that time on the straights, I had 1,000 things to do on the wheel. I don't know what happened. At first I think I was losing 6/10, but then some laps. It was 1.2, sometimes it was 1.5, sometimes it was 1 second, the Monegasque said. Every time I was going on power I didn't know what I will get, and that was first of all very difficult to drive, very frustrating because in the straight I would get overtaken by everybody. In the first part of the race I think we did quite a good job managing that, and because we were in wet conditions, we could recover in corners. I was still believing we could finish in points. But then as soon as it dried up, I was a sitting duck in the straights. The long pit stop was annoying, but at the end, that was the best we could do at that point. I knew we would finish out to the points whatever happened with that issue, so we had to try something with the slicks. It isn't the first time Leclerc's car has had engine issues in 2024, as Ferrari investigated a problem with his new power unit following the Miami Grand Prix. Another issue at Imola caused Leclerc to utilize a third power unit, and he was also handed new energy storage and control electronics in Canada, so he is already facing grid penalties for inappropriate usage of power unit elements. Coming into the weekend, I said we have to reset every time we come into a new weekend. That's exactly what we have done, said Leclerc. Whatever happened on the weekend before, you have to reset and cannot rely on the performance of Monaco. We knew it would be tough. We probably had a worse surprise than what it was in qualifying, and this is the thing we have to look at. Sainz, who had earlier in the weekend been the subject of some very public courting by Williams chief James Vowles, lacked the pace of his Ferrari teammate, but felt the car was beginning to come to him as the track dried out. However, he sustained front wing and floor damage in an early collision with Valtteri Bottas. Then, when running in 10th place, Sainz ran wide at turn 6 and spun around, hitting Alex Albon with the back of his vehicle. A driver mistake. I started to take some risks because in the dry we were a little bit more competitive, and there was a potential to score some points if I took some risk and overtook cars in DRS trains, but I ended up paying the price, the Spaniard said. That's another sign when you push a bit hard you are not very confident and the car is not 100% there, you end up paying for it. It's quite disappointing to come from our strongest weekend to our weakest. That's F1 these days. We must analyse everything to come back stronger. Despite their impressive Monaco weekend, Ferrari has been beaten by McLaren in China, Miami, Imola and now Canada. They are 40 points ahead of McLaren in the constructors' standings, but the Woking-based team has momentum and a more adaptable chassis. Ferrari has generally suffered in wet and chilly weather in Formula One over the last decade, a trend that appears to continue with this year's car. As F1 returns to Europe in the summer, there should be plenty of hot races to aid Ferrari, but they still appear to be unprepared to challenge week in and week out, despite a significant improvement under Frédéric Vasseur's supervision. The most difficult race weekend, I don't know, said Vasseur when asked if Canada was his toughest event since taking over as team principal of Ferrari at the start of 2023. But for sure, it was not the best one. Sometimes you have the feeling that everything is going wrong and everything is going against you. But that will not change the approach that we are working as a team, with the drivers in the good and the bad moments. We will keep the same approach for next weekend and continue together. I'm not scared of this kind of weekend. The team principal highlighted potential difficulties that could impede the red car's qualifying performance for the Canadian Grand Prix. We struggled a lot to turn on the tyres for the flying lap. We need to do a better job on this aspect for the next races. It's always a combination between compound, asphalt and track temperature. But today, Saturday, we weren't in the right place due to the setup and pressure. We need to understand better for the next qualifying sessions. Over the race distance, it will be different. But in qualifying, we have to do a better job. What do you think? Does Ferrari still has chances for winning the championships, or are they done for the season? Let us know in the comments down below.